and 1. You're live.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is Alex Fly. It's nice to have you guys on this virtual session. Today, we're going to be talking about applied intelligence and creating a scalable and repeatable path to production for your AI initiatives. As I mentioned, I am Alex Fly. I'm the founder and co-founder and CEO of QuickPath, where our mission is to help customers optimize every business decision and customer interaction through applied intelligence. And as a data and analytics company, we've been doing this using ML to optimize billions of decisions for nearly 15 years. But as we've been doing this, going from customer to customer, we've identified some very specific challenges that are faced when trying to leverage AI to automate these business decisions. First and foremost, as I'm sure all of you guys are aware, is the scarcity of qualified resources from a technical perspective, business perspective, and data science perspective. As much excitement as we get from the fast and furious pace of the evolution of ML technology and AI technology, it also creates fragmentations and difficulties for IT departments to support all of those various frameworks that data scientists love to use to solve new and interesting problems. We also see that there is a lot of difficulty bridging the gap between the offline analytic AI lab environments used to build, train, and validate models with the production environments in which they need to be run from a real-time or batch inference standpoint on an ongoing basis. We also see tons of data silos across the organization that make it difficult to integrate that customer data and or product data and build that view needed to continue to do those real-time inferences needed to fuel those intelligent decisions. And all of those things kind of all feed together to really result in high implementation cost and low time to value, slow time to value for these AI initiatives. And it all results in some very expensive analytic shelfware, right? So organizations continue to struggle to establish this repeatable path to production for ML-enabled applications, with most implementations taking way too long, costing way too much, and resulting in a significant amount of analytic and technical debt that slows down those modeling teams and IT teams with the cost of burden and of maintaining those AI-enabled applications once they're deployed to production. And if the end game for data and analytics is to drive hundreds, if not thousands of decisions throughout the organization, we've got to bend that cost curve. We have to be able to measure implementation and maintenance cost in thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands or millions, and in hours, not months in terms of their implementation times. And many of these issues were documented in a lot of online articles that you guys have seen, if not pain that you guys have felt yourself. And we really see, we look at this space in terms of two major phases. There's the artificial intelligence, which billions of dollars have been poured into in research and product development by a lot of great technology companies, research institutes, universities, data scientists like yourselves, that are all focused on how do we gather data more efficiently and how do we build and validate better quality models in an easier way, and continue to push the limits on what those models are capable of being able to be used for. But our focus is really on what we refer to as the applied intelligence side, that once we've built and validated a good quality model, how do we take that and convert it into a meaningful business decision or drive customer interactions with it? And those business decisions then result in outcomes, right? Acceptances, declines, credit approvals, credit declines, customers adding products to their shopping cart, anything you can imagine. Those predictions then have a feedback loop that we need to be able to capture and track on an ongoing basis, both in batch and real time. And then ultimately those individual transactions, those individual outcomes aggregate up to real meaningful business impacts, which is really the end game for the whole production AI value chain, right? That's where we see increased revenues, we see decreased operating expenses. And in our experiences, we see, our average ROIs on these real-time implementations of 10x or higher. So what does that development lifecycle look like? Again, there's been, years have gone into improving how we build and validate models through the collection of data, the training of those models. And there's a ton of both open source as well as best of breed enterprise software packages out there to make it easier, whether it's through a notebook or mixed modal, drag and drop UI, or even auto ML tools. So it's easier than ever to build and validate good models, also enabled by cloud computing and elastic compute. But that second half, the last mile, so-called, of being able to then take that model and integrate it into your life cycle. It's often just referred to as model deployment, which is absolutely the first step. But you then also have to be able to integrate that model into your production application and infrastructure, whether that's your mobile app, your website, your CRM system, underwriting engines, you name it, customer recommendation systems. You've got to weave the model, usually business rules, which serve as kind of guardrails for that decisioning. Things as simple as, don't recommend a credit-based product to someone if they're under 18 years old. Those business rules need to be able to be implemented, as well as the data pipelines required to gather the data, transform it into the features required to feed the model, score it. And then next is the learning phase. Again, I mentioned earlier, being able to collect that feedback and capture it on an ongoing basis so that we can evaluate the performance of not just the model, but those business decisions that are being made based upon it. And finally, we need to be able to manage and monitor this entire life cycle, as well as feed all that back into the start of the process and to continue the life cycle in terms of retraining and refitting and continually optimizing that model-driven decision. But the model deployment, as I mentioned before, is really just the tip of the iceberg. There's all these other capabilities that are required that lie beneath the waterline that are going unnoticed and result in a lot of today's failed initiatives and bad press around AI-driven decisioning. Things like data pipelines, ML feedback loops, experimentation capabilities, A/B testing, or champion and challengers. Model management and governance is very important, especially in highly regulated industries like healthcare and financial services. The validation of those processes and the ongoing monitoring, both from a data science perspective of model performance, business perspective of that decision performance, and IT performance of the underlying infrastructure, response rates, availability, those kind of things. And being able to do drift and anomaly detection of the inputs to the process, the model scores themselves, and the business decisions being rendered, as well as the ultimate performance and feedback of those. And so at QuickPath, we've actually developed an applied intelligence platform that really encapsulates all those functionalities that I described, those capabilities I described, and serves as a collaboration platform between the data scientists and the IT teams. And it really functions as a middleware or an integration layer with pre-built connectors for all of your first-party data connectors, relational databases, web services, Kafka event streams, NoSQL databases, to where you can access your first-party data. We also have pre-built connectors for third-party data enrichment services, as well as a lot of the leading SaaS applications that you might want to integrate this, pull data from, or inject intelligent decisions into, like Salesforce and ServiceNow. We also have pre-built adapters, the good stuff, for all the popular open source frameworks for model scoring, a lot of third-party model development apps, as well as the cloud-based kind of PhD ML APIs. And so you can stitch all of those things together, the data pipelines, the data transformations, the models, one or more models to drive that decision, and then the applications that you want to inject those intelligent decisions into. We make it easy to do all of that from an ML engineering standpoint, deploy the whole thing, and then run a lot of those performance dashboards that I mentioned are required. And whether we're working with you guys on our own software or working with you in your own environment, we have a set of guiding design principles and best practices that we put in building our platform. And as I mentioned, if we engage with customers that have their own ML infrastructure and for deployment and ops. These are guiding design principles that we make sure we view as best practices, and we'd like to share those with you. One, building for the future, ensure that we're leveraging open, adaptable, and extensive architectures. Again, with the rapid evolution of the ML landscape, being able to adopt the next great framework that comes along. Designing for self-service, enabling the data scientists to be able to build ML-enabled applications and drive those directly into the business. Design for measurability. In everything we do, we need to be able to answer the simple question, is this working as intended? Automate everything, it kind of speaks for itself. There's so much complexity in these environments. We need to be able to make it as simple to manage these on an ongoing basis as possible. Create configuration over code, again, for scalability. And finally, critical in the AI space, ensuring transparency and trust in everything that we build to be able to avoid AI bias and provide explainability to the business partners that we're helping. And through these principles, we've developed a repeatable methodology where we've increased analytic throughput nearly 20-fold in the building and deploying, the pace of building and deploying models, and have delivered huge real-world ROIs. And again, in conclusion, if companies want to scale to hundreds or thousands of model-driven decisions across their organization, we've got to be able to get the cost of analytics down from 6 or 7 figures to a cost of a few thousand per production decision, and from months to hours per implementation. That's my time. I hope you enjoyed our session, and we would love to talk more with you. And we'd love to hear from you in the chat in terms of some questions and answers that you may have for us. Thank you.